Hello and welcome, everybody. I can't begin to tell you how excited I am for this particular show. Welcome to Show Us Your TDs. Name did not decide on, but that's unfortunately, what we are stuck with. You guys know me. I'm AJ Ryder, and standing to my left is a man who has been all around this country, wrestling, betting, bets all the time. He's currently, again, a resident of Las Vegas, Nevada. Ladies and gentlemen, my former tag team partner, Tyler Cintron.
The one and only. That was a heck of an introduction. I appreciate the kind words, but yes, we are back in Las Vegas, where I absolutely belong with John Gruden and the Las Vegas Raiders, man.
Big win for you guys on Monday night, too. I'm sure you had the Raiders. If I had
you know my system played Raiders money line and over, and then I hedged a little bit on the Raiders money line. And you know my guy Chucky, he always comes through for me. Well, not always.
How great was the little kid dressed up in the Chucky with the headset on?
Oh, like, you know, I screenshotted that, sent that to just about everybody that I talked to, put it up on Facebook, the whole 10 yards.
That was parenting done right.
Yes, it was.
Like if you're living in Las Vegas and you bring your kid to a Raiders game and you dress them up like that, oh man, yeah. Like you know how to do it.
Absolutely.
Dude, what's been up? I think the last time I seen you, I was auditioning for like Cirque du Soleil.
Yep.
And if anybody wants to question that, that's a true story. I did audition for Cirque du Soleil and stayed at Tyler's house that weekend. But I think that was the last time we seen each other.
Yeah, and then moved to Boston very shortly thereafter, and I was out there for a good 4 or 5 years, was able enough to train at the best pro wrestling school on planet Earth, the New England Pro Wrestling Academy, and worked for Chaotic Wrestling a little bit out there, so that was a lot of fun. I mean, pandemic kind of hit us all differently, and everything that happened, I mean, you and I kept in contact through the course of time and found my way back to Las Vegas and just moved into a new spot, just kind of going down memory lane a little bit today with us and thinking of all of the, we'll call it tomfoolery that we did. Let's say that we're not the best wrestlers in the world, but hey, we like to talk, and I would like to say that we were very entertaining with a lot of the things that we did.
So much. Joe Fallow, back in Future Stars of Wrestling in Vegas, I'm sure hated us for as long as we were there. But hey, look, we got the strap for a little while. Dropped it way too soon. But the one thing we've always had in common, and the one thing that's kept us in touch this whole time, is football. Essentially betting on football, which is exactly what we're going to talk about today. Tyler hopefully will be joining me throughout this whole season. We're going to keep giving you best picks and plays. Tyler's super in touch with the people there in Las Vegas. And obviously, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I pretend I do. So we're going to keep that going. First and foremost, you're a big college bettor, a little bit more than I am, I think. But I do dabble. You know, I dip my toes in there, see what the water's like sometimes. And, but I'm sure you're going to be at Red Rock Casino tomorrow, placing your bets before kickoff, I would imagine.
Yes, sir. That's going to be part of the morning routine. You know, I got to get up, got to take Badger for a run, got to hit my morning cardio, and then we're going to not pack up and head over. We're just going to walk on over with how close we live now.
All right. So before we get into the NFL, let's quickly just dive into, we won't obviously run through the lineup of games there, but like, what are you going to play tomorrow?
So, I mean, the slate's kind of interesting. There's a lot of games that scream out like Vegas wants you to take the favorite in this one or take the dog in this one. So there's a lot that I'm actually staying away from tomorrow. So this college slate might be a little bit light. I'll throw up on Twitter probably everything that I'm going to play throughout the day tomorrow. But the one for sure is I love Colorado -2.5 at home against Minnesota. You look at that Minnesota team coming off that heartbreaking loss to Ohio State after having the lead at half. Miami, Ohio hung around with them at home last week, and Colorado gave Texas A&M all they could handle at home, well, in Denver last week. So I love the Buffaloes this weekend. I'll be fully transparent. If people are going to ride with my picks or maybe fade my picks, might suit you from week to week. However, I have a large Miami Hurricanes bias. I do like them. minus 6.5 to kick off the day tomorrow. That Miami team is loaded with talent. Obviously Alabama is Alabama. Just beating the brakes off of them in the opening week. I am a little bit concerned about only beating Appalachian State by 2 last week and not covering. So that would be the disclaimer there. Heading into other things that people like to keep eyes on is home underdogs plus the points has been very successful in college this season. So I'm not going to play it because I don't bet against Alabama, but I know a lot of folks that are on Florida plus 14.5. The 2 touchdown victory for Alabama does cover that spread, so you could see some backdoor action. Alabama is covering machines. However, they didn't cover 2 times last season. One of those was in the SEC championship game against Florida. I know they don't have Kyle Trask anymore. However, Florida just rinse, recycles, repeats with talent. So they do have the weapons on that field to be able to put up points with Alabama. Probably bet the over in that one and just hope for some offensive fireworks and moving the football up and down the field. Florida's backup quarterback is unreal athletic. His name's escaping me. I believe it's Anthony Johnson. 3 for 3 for 150 plus, 2 tutters last week. Had another 100 on the ground and a tutter. So he's a lot of fun to watch. I expect to see him. Let me actually take a look at the slate again as we're going here. I know a lot of people think that the Cincinnati-Indiana game is a trap game, but I love Cincinnati minus 3.5. I think Oklahoma's going to beat the brakes off of Nebraska, so I feel comfortable taking 22.5-point favorites there.
Okay. I do want to bring this up, the Cincinnati-Indiana game. You talked about a trap game because I'm 100% on Indiana, and I'm going money line. Coach JB just came on McAfee today, said it was going to be an upset. I believe in him, and I believe that this Cincinnati has been such a good team for the last 2 years, but I don't think this is the same Cincinnati we've seen, really. And when you look at Indiana, I get okay, they got their ass kicked by Iowa. They came back, they beat Idaho, right? But even in that Iowa game, Fenech started out was absolutely awful. I think he threw 3 picks. But coming back into this one, this is Indiana team that was really good last year, and I don't think they're any worse than they are this year. And I think that going into this one, what are they getting? They're getting 3 points, 3.5.
3.5 currently.
3.5. I think it's going to be a close game at least. And then if I'm going to get plus points on that money line, or if I'm going to get a good value on that money line, I think I got to go there.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that thought. The only caution that I would have is, yes, they did have a very good Big Ten season. They hung around with Ohio State. I think that got really flashy for a lot of people, but Ole Miss took it to them in the bowl game, coming out like they did against Iowa. I still think Cincinnati's a good team. They were in a dogfight with Georgia in that bowl game last year, and I think Luke Fickell's a heck of a coach. And after a little bit of a letdown last week, I think Luke Fickell's going to have them ready to go this week, especially against a Power 5 team on the road, build that resume, push for that 4th playoff spot.
How interesting would that be? Because I think a lot of people wanted to see Cincinnati there last year.
Yep.
And is as dominant as the SEC has been, getting those playoff spots. It'd be nice to see someone like Cincinnati. I guess realistically, I'm rooting for them, but I'm also rooting for my pocketbook when I say I want to go Indiana money line.
Always. And I that 4th spot last season, I don't think either one of us has any love lost getting Notre Dame out of there and getting somebody else in.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think about Florida State coming back after the absolute letdown to Jacksonville State?
I'll probably stay away from it, but Wake Forest can score some points. They did all last season. Wake Forest has a schedule that's very favorable for them to be 7-0 or 7-1, 8-0-ish type heading in that Clemson game later this season. So I am, I'm a Miami Hurricane biased. So obviously I don't believe in Florida State in any capacity. I think that one's at 5.5. Probably stay away from it because I don't want so much action going on where I can't keep up with it all. But I would take Wake Forest minus 5.5 is where I think it currently sits now.
Down to 4.5, so even more.
Even better.
For you. That to me, when you see them kind of give up that just massive Hail Mary, which should never have happened ever, especially in Doak Campbell Stadium. Like that never should have happened. And then you've got what it was, your offensive lineman. He's proposing to his girlfriend after the game on the field as like the whole city of Tallahassee is in mourning. It to me kind of shows that like, okay, this team is not.
Yeah.
Like this is not. Yeah, that's no good. I lean with you there towards Wake Forest.
And on that note, too, speaking of that game last week, being reactionary throughout the day and keeping tabs on the board, when we saw Toledo competing with Notre Dame at Notre Dame, we should have been jumping on. I think Jacksonville State was like 27.5-point dogs. That would have been an easy bet to lay. I mean, the upsets last Saturday night were insane. So I'm hoping we get a little bit more. Another home dog that I do like outright is BYU against Arizona State. That's a heck of an atmosphere in Provo that those guys create. I think that's going to create a lot of momentum for them coming off of that Utah win. So BYU is one to keep eyes on. And then I think do we want to save the best for last?
Well, I've got one more I really want to talk about, and it's I almost had to look it up because I don't remember what the actual spread is. There it is. All right, so Northern Illinois, look, when you're from Illinois, Northern Illinois is the football school. Illinois is the basketball school. Northern Illinois right now is getting 27.5 versus Michigan. And let me ask you a question. If your quarterback is named Rocky Lombardi, do you bet against that school ever?
No, you don't. No, you don't.
They had a bit of a letdown where they had a horrendous start against in the shootout with Wyoming last week. I think bouncing back here. I'm not a huge believer of Michigan and Harbaugh up there in Ann Arbor. So I'm not saying they're going to win this game. I'm not going to play the money line, but to think that they can't make it close enough with 27, I think they can stay within 4 touchdowns of this team. Like I'm not a huge believer of Harbaugh's Wolverines up there. So I like the 27.5 that they're getting. I might be a fool, but again, Rocky Lombardi might be the coolest name in college football right now.
Oh, so hey, I'll ride with you on that one. I'll put that on the card tomorrow morning and pay attention to it because I really haven't had a chance to sit down and watch any Michigan football at all this season. I've kind of been turned off to them just with how poor that they've been since Harbaugh's been there. They really haven't been Michigan football. So that would be one to keep an eyes on for sure.
Well, and I believe you did bring up Miami, Ohio. I think that's who they beat in week 1.
They beat
Georgia Tech. I'm sorry. Yep. Georgia Tech. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I went over Georgia Tech, shootout in Wyoming where they had a slow start, and then now coming into this one, yeah, I like them to cover. And then yes, let's go for the best.
So full disclaimer, I take the cheese on this team often. I send the Giphy of you in the background of Matt Barkley in my group chats often. I love the USC Trojans minus 9.5. I think it sits right now. Although I will publicly say I confidently shot a video last weekend, put it out for the public that they were going to cover that 17.5-point spread last night, and that did not work out in any capacity for me.
No, it did not. And I will drop something there too. I believe on Bovada right now they're 7.5 over Washington State.
Oh, 7.5. Yes, they are. I was misreading. I like it even more then.
Exactly, right? And how do you ever play against – when a coach gets fired, you immediately play that team. It's kind of like the golden rule a lot of times when you play this, especially because that locker room, they loved Clay Helton. I'm sure they're thinking right now after the massive letdown to Stanford, massive letdown, where your kicker – gets thrown out on the first play for targeting. I mean, let's be like, what are we doing here, guys? Coming back, your coach gets fired. Dante Williams takes over. Yeah, I would think that whole locker room is like, we need to win one here for Clay. And who was, again, that whole organization really liked him, but he just wasn't producing the last 2-3 years. So I think they go up, they win this for him. And I think 7.5. Yeah, give that to me all day.
Yeah, and even looking at Washington State, I got a couple buddies that are up there in the Seattle area that keep tabs on it. And they told me last weekend to have, I think it was Portland State was who they played to cover 20.5, and they did by a half point. So if you're not covering against Portland State, you're not going to beat the Trojans the next week. I think that looking at some of their defensive stats, I think they have 2 sacks in 2 games. They lost to Utah State. So there's a lot of things outside of my bias and love for the University of Southern California Trojans that say that is a good play.
Yeah. So 7.5, take that all day long. That's what we say here on Show Us Some TDs. My co-host on Tuesdays for Delaware Park, Tom, says, as long as the Packers lose, I win, which I believe he said that to me every single week. So apparently he won last week, but if he always plays that, he'll typically lose. So that's what I'm going for. And that being said, let's head off into Sunday for the slate of, I would say, okay, so week 2 is probably harder than week 1, typically, just because you have one impression of a lot of these teams. So if you won in week 1, good for you. Congratulations. Don't get a big head. If you lost in week 1, guess what? Week 2 is a whole different animal. There's lots going on here. So let's just start it off. We'll run through the slate of games here pretty quickly. We got 13 of them. So we'll just start with the noon games. And let's start with the Packers' number 1 foe, the Chicago Bears, who are 2-point favorites over the Cincinnati Bengals right now. The over-under is currently set at 45.5.
So with that one, I watched both teams play. For the world to know, I'm a huge Sean McVay stan too, so I'm very LA Rams biased. So it was kind of scary for everybody in the world to see Matt Stafford in Sean McVay's system. I think it's going to be pick your poison with that team, but we'll talk about that later. They were able to move the ball up and down the field. I mean, you look at how the game started with the big kickoff return. Justin Fields stepped in, dropped that short pass to get him in rhythm, and then put Dalton back in, and turn the ball over. However, this is an Andy Dalton revenge game. He was the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback for what felt like forever.
For 45 years at least.
Yeah, I mean, he was just there. I mean, he was the Cincinnati, him and Marvin Lewis. They were there for, literally years. Home opener for the Bears. I don't believe that Cincinnati's offensive line can keep Burrow upright against any team. Nonetheless, a pass rush like Khalil Mack can offer, so I expect a big game out of him. We'll stay away because I'm not going to bet on the Bears to win ever. But a 2.5-point spread, I do kind of like them to cover that and win that game.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And the way I look at it too is like, okay, so Cincinnati beat the shit early on out of Minnesota, but it's Minnesota. How is that super impressive? The entire world, though, and I knew this coming into this game, is betting the Bengals. 76% of the money right now is on the Bengals, which I love strictly because for the second straight week, I'm going to take the Bears to cover. I took them last week because I just thought 9.5 was a little too much. I looked pretty smart for about 3 quarters, and then, of course, everything went to hell. But in this one, just because, Cincinnati looked great against Minnesota, but a lot of teams look great against Minnesota. That's not a hard thing to do. I think the Bears offense takes a step forward from last week, facing an offense that's not half as good, realistically, as what they've seen over in SoFi Stadium last week. So, and look, Dalton looked fairly good at times, moving that offense forward. Two really crappy turnovers. I mean, they were -2 in the turnover. You're not going to win that way. I think the whole offense, I think the team takes a step forward because, again, this is the Bears. They always find a way. I mean, this is a team that beat the Bucs last year.
Yep.
I mean, they always find a way to sneak out these games, which is exactly why I took them last week against the Rams. But I think this game, to me, I would fade the public immensely. I'll take the Bears -2. The over, I'm not sure about yet. I should go over, but again, it's also the Bears. So I might lean towards the under, but I will take the Bears -2.
Yeah, and I mean, that Cincinnati offense can be explosive if you can keep Burrow upright. I mean, Jamar Chase looked fantastic last weekend after the whole difficult.
You can't see the stripes.
Yeah, it's like, what?
No, yeah. He is over, and especially I can't see the Bears defense giving up the kind of big plays like they did, like that Eddie Jackson debacle when they beat him deep. I doubt that happens. I would think Cincinnati comes back down to earth a little bit more in this one.
Yep.
So that being said, let's move on. This one I like a lot. The Texans at the Browns. Browns are 13-point favorites as of right now. The over-under is set at 47.5.
So the Houston Texans offense is loaded with veterans that have a point to prove. They're not packing it in at all. I mean, Tyrod Taylor is not that elite Mahomes-Rodgers type quarterback, but he's a very good NFL quarterback. You got the Bills in the playoffs for the first time in how many seasons, and then, got to Cleveland, filled in for Baker, went to I'm going to call them the San Diego Chargers because LA belongs to the Rams. But the Chargers, with the whole injection thing puncturing a lung or whatever happened there, I think he's playing to prove a point. And he went out there and proved it last week. I mean, Brandon Cooks is still a very productive wideout. Looks like Mark Ingram still got a little bit in the tank too, so that offense can put up points. However, the Browns might have a top 3 loaded roster on paper in the entire NFL, and losing the game like they did in that fashion last week. I have all the confidence in the world the Browns will win the game, but I see 13 points on where I'm looking now, and that's a lot of points to cover in the NFL, especially with a Houston Texans offense that still can be productive.
Yeah, ton of money coming in on the Browns. That line might move even closer to 14 come Sunday, which if that does, because I absolutely love the Texans getting this many points against the Browns. Remember a year ago, and look, I get they had Deshaun Watson as a different team, but it was 10-7.
Yeah,
a year ago last year when these two teams played each other. So if you're going to give me 14 points, I have to take it all day. And again, the Houston Texans are the sole number 1 team in first place in the AFC South right now. That whole division, it looks terrible. But last year's game, Chubb and Hunt both combined. They both went over 100 yards. They combined for like 230 yards of total offense in that 10-7 win. Chubb's rushing prop right now is at 86.5. It opened at 81 about 3 hours ago. It's already up to 86. Hunt's is at 39.5. I would venture a guess that at least one of those guys goes over. I would lean towards Chubb because I'm not sure we'll really see the way that offense is spread out just yet. But Houston is 6-3 against the spread in their last 9, 6-0 against the spread in the last 6 versus Cleveland. Cleveland is 1-4 in their last 5 against the spread, and the under has come in 9 out of 10 times these two teams have met each other. I will take Houston and the points, and I will take the under because a lot of times these trends don't lie. And I think, look, Tyrod was the guy until a doctor just stabbed a needle through his heart and knocked him out for an entire year. Let's stop pretending like this guy can't play.
I agree.
He's not Deshaun Watson, but look, this guy can sling the ball around, and he showed it last week. I mean, I get it was Jacksonville, but still, he can sling it around there, and they can stay at least with a backdoor cover. I think on this team for sure.
And I always say too, if he didn't put up numbers, and I think they finished 37 points last week. I mean, that's still in the NFL. That's impressive. That's nothing to bat your eyes at, irregardless of who the opponent is.
Granted, it was Jacksonville, who hasn't won a game in over a year, but we'll move on to let's bring up your boy McVay, the Rams at the Colts. The Rams are laying 3.5, and the over/under right now 48.5.
So this is my absolute mortal lock of the weekend.
Oh, here it is. Here it is.
There it is.
I wish I had a graphic to bring in right now. Let's lock it up.
Yeah, you might hear that a few times out of the LA Rams from me this season, but I just think that defense is too good. I mean, they're just going to smother Wentz. I was a big believer in Carson Wentz. Last season didn't really go as well. He didn't look impressive last week. I mean, Seattle looked really good. We'll talk about that later. I can't envision Stafford not going there and putting up another, 3-touchdown performance. And the way that McVay can run the ball on anybody, it screams that it's going to be I don't want to say blowout, but that's probably going to be a heck of a lot more than 3.5. Now, I don't play a lot of like individual player props. However, I like to look at alternate lines. And last week I looked long and hard at the Rams minus 14.5 at plus 205 odds. I already locked in my big bet, my lock of the week on them minus 3.5 earlier this week because I expected that one to move a little bit. However, I'll take a look at the alternate prop when it's posted on Sunday and probably sprinkle a little bit there too.
Yeah, I had to take a look. And shout out to the guy named Drunky Steve Sarkisian right now. That made me laugh, especially after we just talked about SC. No, because all right, I'm not wearing this Colts jersey because I'm a fan of the Colts. I'm really not. But I want to believe that they're going to be better. I mean, I would think Carson Wentz brings a little bit more of dimension to that offense, more than Phillip Rivers did. And Phillip Rivers, was great last year for them.
Mm-hmm.
You bring in Wentz, and I think this is a really good team at its core, like it should be. I thought they were going to put a bigger fight against Seattle. Maybe that's just week one. And then here's where kind of week 1 to week 2 is always such a pain in the ass to try to bet because you have the one impression. Well, they played the Seahawks. Seahawks looked really good. They played the Rams, or the Bears played the Rams. And, well, the Bears, they're kind of the Bears. And you have Andy Dalton, and you don't know what you're doing with Fields. Like, how much do I buy into that? Because now looking at this game, it's like, all right, this line realistically should be bigger, I feel like, given what they both did last year. And it's not. And the Rams the Colts are getting big money. They're taking 30% of the bets and 50% of the public money right now.
Oh,
so big money players are putting big money on the Colts. That concerns me because I'm with you. I think I took the Rams to win that division. I took the Rams to probably win the NFC because I really like what they're doing. And I'm a big Stafford fan especially now that he's not in Detroit. I don't know if I can possibly commit to one team, so I'll take the over.
Yeah. Well, and on that note, another system play I rocked with last season was Rams under. Like they would just beat you up defensively. They would just have Goff manage the game, hand the ball off, all those short throws. It ain't like that anymore. I feel like McVay's got that big arm and he's going to use it, and they're going to force them to cover deep, and that's going to open up that run game and just wear them down throughout the course of the game. So, again, it's pick your poison really week to week, especially if you're playing these guys in fantasy. I did play Cooper Kupp to score a touchdown at any time, and our friend Robert Woods, shout out USC Trojans again, to score a touchdown. Beautiful footwork on that touchdown, by the way, just beautiful.
Oh, that was pretty. I mean, I've never been more proud of a player I actually coached. And when I say I coached, I mean when he was hurt, like I did his like rehab stuff in the weight room, but that was about it. But no, I mean the Rams looked great, especially against a defense that's usually pretty good. I would lean towards the Rams covering for sure, but again, I'm a believer in this Colts team. I think there's something there. They've got a good roster. It's whether or not we get Carson Wentz from years ago or we get Carson Wentz we've seen the last 2 years.
Yeah. And I think on that note with the Colts, I think they're going to progress as the season goes on. So if we're talking about this matchup in week 10, I think it's a different conversation. But Wentz, finding his rhythm with these receivers, live games, I mean, going up against
T.Y. Hilton back.
That helps too.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so fun. The McVay, Stafford, like just the thought of it. So It's so great. And it's going to be fun to watch going forward. So I'll stick with the over there because I do think Wentz does find a rhythm finally. And I think the Rams just keep going like we've seen last week. So let's move on. This one's a little bit tougher for me personally when I looked at it. The Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. The Bills are laying 3.5, 47.5 the over-under.
I'm staying away from this one completely. I can't tell you one way or the other. I think last season when Buffalo went down there, they were 4.5 or 5.5 point favorites, and they won by 4 or 5. They missed covering by a half point, and I still remember that. Will Fuller being out probably helps the cause for Buffalo. They did not look good at all last week. I mean, I think Pittsburgh's defense is going to be a top 5 defense this season, but they just couldn't finish last week. They could move the ball a little bit, but they just couldn't finish. So I don't know if there's a blueprint out there for Josh Allen, or now that we have fans and noise again in it, it's going to settle him back down from that MVP race that he was in last season. So that's this one is too tough to tell. If I was going to bet anything, I would definitely take the under in it, because it's going to be your old school AFC slugfest, it feels like.
It's funny you say the under, because the Bills went down there. Or not down there, but they did score a combined 87 points in the 2 games they played against Miami last year, which is insane. You're right. The first time they did play last year, it was like 31 to something. It was 31-28 when they played in week 2 last year. And then they played them at home the next time and beat them 56-26. Which is so crazy to think about, with how good how good that defense played last year for Miami, and then this team continued to just put up points. I'm not super impressed by Miami's win against New England last week. 3.5 seems pretty safe for me, if I'm going to be honest, because I don't think Miami's that good yet. I think there's pieces there. I love Howard in that secondary for Miami, but Josh Allen and the Bills, I think, are a little overrated, but not in this scenario. I like the Bills minus 3.5. I do. It's closer than I think it's going to be, though. So, moving on. Patriots, Jets, 2 rookie quarterbacks going at each other. The Pats are -6. The over-under is at 43 right now.
So this is a tough one, and all that time in Boston, I get a lot of inside scoops about the Patriots. But the Patriots defense played really well last week. If it wasn't for those 2 key fumbles by the running backs, New England probably takes that game. However, first road start for Mac, first home start for Wilson. A lot of variables that go into that, and I think that theory of Bill Belichick versus rookie quarterbacks will come into play. However.
Yeah, but he never had a rookie quarterback. We look
exactly. So that's why, if New England wins, I don't think it's going to be by more than a touchdown. So the play that I would have would be the Jets +6 at home.
Interesting. I stayed away. 2 rookie quarterbacks going head to head. I was like, I can't touch this game. I want to, because I want to take New England. I do, because I just think that this team is better. I think Mac fits better. I'm not sure. I think he's going to do great there in New England. I really do. But shit, the Jets. I don't know. I just don't know what to think. They could show up. I don't want to just base their week 1 game off of that and say that this team sucks. Pats by 100. So I'm staying away from it entirely. I'm not going to touch the over. I'm not going to touch the Pats. I'm just, I want nothing to do with it. I'll just watch and see what happens.
Yeah, I'll probably sit this one out too. But if I had to, forcing a pick out of it, I would take the Jets +6 at home. Which is crazy to think.
Shit. Yeah, right. Taking the Jets, huh? I had it written down, or I looked. Yeah. Massive money, 81% of the bets, 81% of the money coming in on the Patriots right now.
And fade the public sometimes works. I did it last night.
I was going to say, after seeing that, I'm like, I'm with you on the Jets, maybe.
Yeah, crazy things happen. I threw down that parlay last night just because to fade the public, and got the Giants +4 and over 41. And
which everyone in the world thought Washington football team was going to win that one, which I did too. But again, I didn't want to touch it because Thursday night games are always fucking tricky. I think Jacksonville had their only win on Thursday night, which if that tells you anything. All right, so no one wants to touch that game. I might now, knowing the Jets are just massive public everyone. Yeah, just to fade the public. So moving on. This one I love. I love. This is my mortal lock of the week. The 49ers at the Eagles. The Niners are 3-point favorites. The over-under is set right now at 49.5.
I watched the Eagles and Falcons game back earlier this week, and I was not a firm believer in Jalen Hurts. I'm not fully sold on him yet. However, I am warming up to him a little bit. However, I feel like with the way San Francisco came out and really, stomped Detroit and then let them back in the game, I don't think they're going to do that again this week. I would take the Niners -3 at home.
The Niners -3 is my favorite bet of the whole weekend. And especially, too, when you talk about fading the public, which is like my favorite thing to do just because it makes me feel smarter when I do it. It's like, oh, everyone bet this, and then I pick this. So, fuck you. No, but Philly's taking 74% of the money and 33% of the bets. FanDuel, 90% of the money on FanDuel right now alone. Philly is taking the money. I think there's a big presence for FanDuel in Pennsylvania, so probably a lot of fans taking that. But are you kidding me? Like, the Eagles, stomping the shit out of the Falcons? The Falcons might be this year's Jaguars.
Yeah.
The Falcons are terrible.
Yes, they are.
So beating them proves absolutely nothing to me. And the 49ers, I get, okay, they beat Detroit. Not a great game, but and they let them back in the game, but they did exactly what they should have when they were winning 41-17.
Right.
They did exactly what they needed to do. Even if by some stretch of the imagination they let the Eagles back in this game, it's not going to be to within 3.
No. And I think, didn't Philadelphia go there and win last season too early?
Possibly. Well, but last season.
Yeah, last season's last season. But I think that's motivating factors for defensive players, I would say. I think San Fran's going to come out and ready to just beat the brakes off of them.
Yeah. And just if I would have bet this one and I would have seen the public perception and where the money's going and it was all on San Francisco, then I might be like, well, this might be a little bit of a trap game. But the fact that everyone in the world is taking Philly, it seems like, fuck. Yeah. I've never been more confident in a bet in my entire life. 49ers all day. I just got a bonus check from work. It's going to go all on the 49ers -3. It's crazy. And yes, Eagles did go in there, won 25-20 last year.
I think that was the only game that Wentz had that he was functional in, to be honest. That's why I jumped out.
Probably. Let's look. Wentz, 18 for 28, 193, a touchdown, interception. So, yeah, that's probably the best game he had all year. So, yeah, Niners all day, no question. I don't care about the over-under because I'm just going to take the Niners. Moving on, let's go. Your hometown team, the Raiders at the Steelers. Steelers are laying 6.5, over-under 46.5.
So there's a lot of things here on paper. Pacific time zone going to the East Coast, that time zone change. I have flashbacks of the Atlanta beatdown, flashbacks of the Jets game last season with the Raiders. So typically in that time zone, they really don't play that well. However, you even look at New England was the game I was thinking of last season. So the same situation. The Raiders are coming off a huge Monday night win against the Saints. They go to New England and just get pounded. I don't want to say it out loud, and I'm not going to bet on it in any capacity. I am going to sprinkle the Raiders on the money line. However, that Steelers defense was lights out last week. Got a special teams touchdown. There was a lot of miscues up front for the Raiders early on. So it's going to have to be Derek Carr slinging it for 400 yards for the Raiders to get a win out there, with Josh Jacobs just getting announced being out, like we spoke about earlier.
25 minutes ago that happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things working against the Raiders. So there's a lot of things that would say, hey, stay away, stay away, stay away. But I am a degenerate gambler. I am a big John Gruden stan. So I'm sprinkling the money line. I'm not going heavy on the money line. It's just a system play that I do for me and me only.
I love it. And if you're going to bet on the Raiders, you do it weeks 1 through 8.
Yep.
You don't do it later in the season because that never seems to work out for anybody. I made a lot of money on the Raiders early in the year, and I thought it was going to keep happening at the end of the year, and it did not.
Yep.
So early in the year, I would say, yes, bet on the Raiders. I'm all for it. I like to play just going money line, but the Steelers worked out so very, very well for me last week. And I think there's some sort of weird public perception about the Steelers not being good. But again, this is a team that went 14-12 last year.
Yeah, they went 14-2,
13-0 at one point in time.
Yeah,
And for some reason, everyone in the world just doesn't want to believe in this team. Like what Mike Tomlin does there, it's crazy. I like the Raiders. I like them, especially at home last week. But now that we got to go on the road and we got to go into Pittsburgh, we got to go into Heinz Field, that's a different story. If this was at Allegiant, I'd lean towards the Raiders. But the fact that the Steelers are at home, I believe this is their home opener.
Yep.
That place will be absolutely insane. Big Ben, stop jerking off. Been winning football games. That's what he does.
And, the Raiders are a team that I pay close attention to. They were 2-6 at home last season and 6-2 on the road. So they're teams that go to Atlanta and get beat down. They go to New England and get beat down, but then they go to Kansas City and win. So you just really aren't quite sure which Raiders are going to show up. However, the defense, watching them Monday night, they did give up a lot of yards, but they made some plays when they needed to make plays, which was refreshing because I haven't seen that since Gruden got back there. But if people are asking a suggestion, I would say stay away. However, I'm just sprinkling the Raiders money line,
which I think is a solid play. But when I watched the game on Monday night, I seen Derek Carr try to force it to Waller way too many times, especially early on.
Yep.
And I think if you keep doing that, if you keep kind of telegraphing where you're going, I think like that secondary and Minka Fitzpatrick is going to make you pay early on.
Yep.
And I think if they get up early, I think it's game over. 7 is like the perfect thing where I think, okay, 7, I think the Raiders might play well or they might not. I mean, it's the Raiders. Yep. I think even if they play well, I think the Steelers still cover 6.5. I see them as, to me, it's about a 7.5, 8-point line. Like when I thought about it. So I will take the Steelers laying the points for sure. But again, it's the Raiders. I don't bet on them. They'll probably beat me this time out.
Yeah.
So yeah, Steelers there. Let's move on to okay, this is a big one because you're a Packer fan. I know you're living there in Las Vegas. If you can't tell, I'm a Packer fan as well. The Saints are going to Carolina. And the Saints are laying 3.5. Over-under is at 45.5. 75% of the money right now here on Friday is going on the Panthers.
Which is utter insanity to me because the Saints defense is so good. Like, I know Rodgers always has that one game a year where he just plays terribly, but they did the same thing to Tom Brady in the middle of last season. Like, this defense is just lights out. And even in that playoff game against the Bucs, they played really well against Brady. The only touchdown drives they had came from inside their own 40 because Drew Brees didn't have a live arm.
He was throwing beach balls. I mean, like, what do you do?
And, you can say what you want about Jameis, but he was not forcing anything. He was throwing the ball away when he needed to throw the ball away last weekend watching that game. I know Kevin King's not in coverage for the Panthers, so that goes very well for the Panthers defense. Yeah. And I literally just watched the Carolina Jets game this morning. I don't see it. I don't understand why New Orleans wouldn't just go there and win that game comfortably.
And look, I mean, Sam Darnold played pretty well last week. Sure, I'll give him that. But to think that this team that just decimated the MVP last week, I mean, they destroyed the Packers.
I turned it off. I flipped it over to Kansas City and Cleveland because
why wouldn't you? It was disgusting. I mean, it was literally just vomit on your TV watching that game. So the Panthers squeak by the Jets by 2 points. The Jets.
Yep.
The Jets. And the Saints annihilate the Packers. And then you put this line at 3.5 and everyone's taking the Panthers?
Yeah, I don't.
What the fuck is happening?
Yeah, I don't know the thought process behind that one and why I'd want to jump all over it. I mean, I'm just watching the game. I mean, Robbie Anderson had a few big plays, and other than that, it was just kind of standard move the ball offense.
I think this Saints team is way better than I guess we're giving them credit for. Like, way better, especially with Jameis, because you now, like, Sean Payton has so much more dimension with this offense, because you had Drew Brees last year who could was throwing med balls half the year, and now you've got Jameis, who, again, this guy threw 30 touchdowns 2 years ago with the Bucs.
Yeah,
and can push the ball, and his arm is live as hell.
Yes.
And obviously, he got LASIX, and he's not blind anymore. So now you've got a clear seeing Jameis Winston back there in the pocket throwing the football. I don't understand. I would move this line maybe to like 6, 7, maybe. Because I just don't see how Carolina competes here at all. Jameis is under passing yards right now. It's set at 238. I'm hammering that over. I know we didn't throw for a ton last week, but he didn't have to.
Yeah, I didn't need to.
Like, okay. I think Saints all day. I'm taking the Jameis over prop. Something's fishy here, and I don't want that to burn me because, again, everything just seems wrong. So who knows what'll happen, but I mean, looking at it, it just seems like common sense. Like, okay, Saints, by a lot.
Yeah, and on that note, with the Saints not getting enough credit, like they won that division last year. Like they handled the Bucs twice. They pretty much handled them until Drew Brees started turning the ball over in the second half of that football game. Like that is a good football team, and I feel like they may have upgraded at the quarterback position. Another fun fact for everybody: there's been 12 5,000-yard passing seasons in NFL history, and my research is my research. So if there's a little bit more or a little bit less, I'm sorry, but I counted 12. Drew Brees has 5 of them as the New Orleans Saints quarterback. Jameis Winston has 1 of them from a few years ago in Tampa. That's a good dynamic to have if you're Sean Payton down there. Like this team is getting slept on completely, being 3.5-point dogs last week and just being 3.5-point favorites this week. I love the Saints minus 3.5.
And it's crazy too. Like the thing you're sleeping on the Saints, just because why? Because the guy under center isn't named Breeze anymore.
Yeah,
like Jameis threw what, like 33 touchdowns and 33 interceptions that year.
Yeah,
and then he comes out week 1 of this year and throws like 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions.
Yep.
There's a good chance Jameis throws 50 this year. Are you shitting me?
Yeah, I mean,
especially too, they don't have Michael Thomas yet.
And they might not, but it's rinse, recycle, repeat. They were without Michael Thomas for a chunk of time last season too.
I mean, to me, it's absolutely insanity, especially when I expected to see, after what the Saints did last week, all the money in the world being on the Saints.
Yep.
And lo and behold, here we are on Friday, and it's not. So fuck yeah, give me the Saints. So yeah, Saints clear favorites. Cool. Over under, any thoughts? No.
Probably just gonna stay away from that one. I think Carolina can score. They do. I mean, there's toys in that toy box, as I like to say, with DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, I mean, there's pieces to work with there, but three and a half is where I'm sticking.
Yeah, I would lean towards the over just because I think the Saints might be able to score 44 by themselves, and it seems awfully low. I would lean towards that, but yeah, my focus is on that spread all day long. All right, move on. Denver at Jacksonville. Teddy Bridgewater versus Trevor Lawrence. Broncos are 6-point favorites. The over-under 45.5.
Oh, so this one's probably going to be a giant stay away from me too. The Broncos did look pretty good against the Giants last week, but the Giants are the Giants we saw again last night. So the verdict's still out on that. Obviously, Teddy Bridgewater is a definite upgrade from Drew Lock. That Broncos defense is pretty solid. So if I was going to lean one way or the other, I would probably lean Denver to cover 6 in that one. But then again, it's another Mountain time zone going to the Eastern time zone, and sometimes crazy stuff happens with that. So that's why I'm just going to stay away from it, and I really don't have skin in the game with either team. I would love the Jaguars to win personally for the Raiders to get more cushion on top because we got to keep up with the Chiefs, keep everybody else away. But yeah, I haven't seen in Jacksonville and Houston yet, so I can't comment too much on how Jacksonville looks. But yeah, I would lean towards the Broncos defense getting after a rookie quarterback and Teddy Bridgewater not having any mistakes, and an easy victory for the Broncos.
Yeah. So the Jacksonville Jaguars haven't won a game in over 365 days. Ugh. They have a rookie quarterback who's now played one game and not looked great in that one game. They've got pretty much a rookie. I don't want to call Urban Meyer a rookie head coach, but this is his second NFL game ever. Yep. And now that the USC job's open, there's a lot of people saying like he might be in that thing. It might be, yeah. Like, screw Jacksonville. I'm out of here. I'm going to LA. Look, Jacksonville did absolutely nothing to upgrade their team from a 1-15 season last year. Like, okay, you got rid of like Gardner Minshew and you have a rookie quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence might end up being better than Gardner Minshew, which the jury is still out for all those Trevor Lawrence lovers out there. Like, look, he's been dropped into a bad situation. This guy may never mature and be the almighty Trevor Lawrence that everyone thought he was. I've been very low on him since the draft, or since they played Ohio State like 2 years ago in the playoff. Yep. Never been a Trevor Lawrence guy. Never have. Never will be. And then you've got a guy named Teddy Covers Bridgewater who does nothing but start NFL games and cover the spread. That's all he does. 36-13-1 against the spread when he's the starter. Absolutely ridiculous. And so you give me Teddy Bridgewater on a team that everyone thought, if Aaron Rodgers comes here, this team's winning the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So there's Jerry Jeudy's down, out. Okay, that sucks, but still. This is still a solid defense. This is still a pretty good offense. And you give me Teddy Bridgewater, whose only job in the NFL seems to be like, what's the spread? All right, I'm going to cover it. That's what he does. So Teddy Bridgewater getting 6 points against the abysmal Jacksonville Jaguars. I will take that all day, and I will take it to the bank. Give me 6. They should win by 10. Jacksonville's not good. I don't care who their quarterback is or who their head coach is. Yeah, give me Teddy Covers and the Broncos all day long.
Same.
All right, so then moving on, let's go to another NFC North team because these are fun to talk about. The Vikings are at the Cardinals. Cardinals are -3.5. Over/under is at 50.
So here is the crazy play that I'm going to have this week.
No,
I do like the Vikings to win outright.
Oh Jesus!
So watching that Arizona game last week, I watched that one back. The Titans were just abysmal on offense. Like the Minnesota Vikings are not abysmal on offense. Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Thielen, Justin Jefferson, like they have a lot of weapons to work with on that offense. Patrick Peterson now plays corner for the Minnesota Vikings, so it's back to that revenge game factor a little bit for me. I didn't see enough out of Arizona last week where I was like, oh my God, these guys are so good. This is what we thought they were going to be. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is top 3 receiver in the league, if not number 1. But outside of that, I'm not taking the cheese on the Cardinals, and I think the Vikings bounce back and get a road victory this week.
You didn't see anything out of the Cardinals? You got Kyler Murray back there looking like a Madden video game.
Yeah.
You've got Chandler Jones kicking the absolute shit out of Taylor Lewan and getting 5 sacks in the week 1. I mean, I get it. The Titans had their troubles for sure, and their defense is absolutely terrible. Like the Titans defense is going to be what holds them back all year long. But that was just an obliteration, and the Vikings couldn't show up and let the Cincinnati Bengals defense look like they were the 1985 Bears.
Hey, I said it was the crazy play of the week.
Yeah, and yes, crazy is exactly what it is, sir.
It is. On that note, with Kyler running around, his tackles aren't that good. If Minnesota can get a pass rush and just not let him run in circles and let him play Madden-style offense, it's going to throw a monkey wrench in that system, and that's what I think happens a little bit this weekend.
See, I mean, I like where you're going with, like, okay, you got Cousins, you got Dalvin Cook, you got Justin Jefferson, but, I mean, this offensive line that they're about to face in Minnesota isn't better than Tennessee's. And no.
Tennessee's offensive line was pretty rough last week.
Yeah, but Minnesota?
I mean, they're not elite, but I mean, they're not as poor as Tennessee's was.
I think we're going to find out that neither is Minnesota's. I see a lot of people actually playing the Vikings. And honestly, it's probably a solid spot to kind of fade the week 1 overreaction, just because it was Tennessee. Tennessee had one of the best top 2 offenses last year in the league. Realistically, they held Derrick Henry to 9 carries and 8 yards in the first half, which is unbelievable. So coming back now, and especially to the massive letdown the Vikings had, the Vikings do have this weird way of staying in football games always. just because you've got primetime Kirk back there.
Yep.
Throwing the football. You've got Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook had like 700 touchdowns in one game against Green Bay last year. It was absolutely ridiculous. Yes, the offense is good and it keeps them in games, but that defense looked really fucking poor last week, that first half. And if there's one thing the Vikings do, it's they don't know how to show up for the first half of football games.
That's very true as well. So maybe Cards first half is the play there.
Cards first half all day long. The actual spread, I'm good until the Cardinals look like the Cardinals we've seen. I've been expecting this for about 3 years now. They look better year in and year out. They add pieces with J.J. Watt and DeAndre Hopkins over the course of the last 2 years. I think this team might be more complete than you're giving them credit for. So I will take the Cardinals all day just because the line isn't big enough for me to think. Like if this was like an 8-point spread, I'd be like, yeah, Vikings. They'll hang around. They always find a way to. But 4 points is enough for me, and I would hammer the over. The over.
Well, I would too.
So I'm going Cardinals pretty much all day on this one. Over is my favorite bet in this one, just because Kirk will be down by 25 points, and then they'll score 18.
Yep.
So they'll find a way to cover that. Over 50 is usually pretty high, but it's way too low here. So I'll take the over, and I'll go Cardinals 3.5. But I like the fade in the big time performance from week 1 on the team. That's what scares me.
Yeah,
it's week 2.
Yep. That's the fun part about gambling in the NFL is we're basing a lot off of week 1 and the trends that we're seeing off of that. But I don't know. I just dove into both games and I was like, this Minnesota team underplayed and I think Arizona overplayed. And I think both teams kind of settle it back this weekend. And actually, that might be the funnest game to watch this weekend.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to that one. All right. So let's talk about a team that we haven't seen since last Thursday. And that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Falcons at Bucks minus 12.5.
So we've talked about Atlanta might be Jacksonville style. Like they might be the ones duking it out for the first overall pick. Like watching them play against the Eagles last week was just poor. If it was in Atlanta, I might like Atlanta with the points, but I can't imagine Tampa Bay just not beat the brakes off of them about 10 times today. But Tom Brady, that offense, those weapons. I think that defense is going to be a little bit ornery from underperforming last week, letting Dak throw for 400 yards. I think Tampa just routs this team and blows them out of the water.
Yeah, I'm on the same. And it's not even Tom Brady and the offense. It's that defense who did not look like the defense we've seen them. That defense carried them to the Super Bowl. They held Aaron Rodgers. They kicked his ass. They held the Chiefs to 10 points in the Super Bowl. That defense is what won that for them, and they did not show up week 1. I think with the extra days they have to prepare for this, the Falcons probably won't score double digits. I mean, it's pretty probable. So I'm definitely going to lean towards the under there because I just don't think that's going to happen. Bucks are 5-2 against the spread in their last 7, 9-0 straight up, and 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 at home, not including the Super Bowl. Bucks all day.
Yeah, and I think they took it to them in Tampa last season too. I think it was in Atlanta when it was a shootout, and I think they won by 4. So Tampa at home, I would take it to cover.
Yeah, not even a question.
Yeah.
All right. Here's one. Again, a team that just played we haven't seen till Thursday. The Cowboys at Chargers. Chargers are 3.5-point favorites. 54.5 the over.
So this is a super interesting matchup, and I also think this one's going to be a fun game to watch. But I don't know. I mean, are the Chargers still the Chargers? You know, are the Cowboys back to being that high-powered offense that can win those shootout games with Dak at quarterback? So if anything, I'm just taking the over and hoping for a lot of points going. But, man, that 3.5-point spread is that tricky number that we've seen on a lot of games this week. And some of them I'm like, ooh, I love that. And this one I'm like, I don't know if I like it one way or the other. If it was a pick 'em, I probably wouldn't even be able to pick the winner for this one. You know what I mean? So, but then again, I think we know Mike McCarthy pretty well, and he likes to give games away. So, but I don't know if it's going to be by a field goal, on a last-second field goal, and they win by 2, or if Mike McCarthy is just going to be Mike McCarthy. This one I'm staying away from. both high-powered offenses. I would probably take the over just by the high-powered offenses matchup.
I don't disagree with you at all. I think you're spot on the money. Here's what concerns me. The Cowboys lost about 21 of their starters in the last 72 hours.
That's right.
Which has now prompted the public to go 81% of the money on the Chargers and most of the bets as well. And I'm going to make this decision real time because I've been thinking about it all day because I love this so much because it's good. I love this game. I love this matchup because I'm high in the Chargers and I've never been high on betting the Cowboys ever. The Cowboys are numero uno, stay away from always because they always find a way to give that shit up. I'm with you. Probably the over, but I am going to take the Dallas Cowboys -3 or +3.5 because I'm just going to pretty much take the team that's getting points in this one.
Yep.
I can't trust either of them to really win by more than that, and I think it's going to be a close game, so I'll take the team that's going to get points and probably lose by 3. Obviously, the Cowboys were dog shit last year because they had Andy Dalton most of the year. But now you got Dak, and I know you got a shit ton of injuries. You lost Michael Gallup. Played super well in that opener against the Bucs. Chargers did not play very well in that opener. I like where the Chargers are going as a franchise. Just not maybe week 2. I'm going to take the Cowboys +3.5.
I'm taking the over in that one for sure.
Yeah. Probably. Well, watch that. We think it's going to be that's the one that's going to be high scoring shootout that we think it's going to be. And then they score fucking, it's going to be 14-7.
Yeah.
Okay. One team looked really good last week. The other team looked absolutely abysmal. The Titans are on the road going up to the 12th man at the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are -6.5, 54.5, the over under.
So that's a big total, but that number can get hit by both those teams. So here's what's concerning about the Titans is they have the offense that can turn it on at any time. If they can get that offensive line functional and creating, running lanes for our guy Derrick Henry, it's a completely different ballgame that they can keep tight. This one would scream the over in the Titans +6.5 because they can just score. And I can see a 38-34 Seahawks type victory. But we could also see what we saw last week because Carlos Dunlap looked fantastic against the Colts. And if you're giving up 5 sacks to Chandler Jones, not saying that Carlos Dunlap is on Chandler Jones' level at all, but Carlos Dunlap looked really good last week, and I expect him to have a big game. But I'll probably stay away from this one altogether until we get a verdict out on the Titans because I don't want to be the wrong side on the guessing game with them the week they decide to turn it on.
Yeah, it's so because the Titans offense, you'd think adding Julio Jones would add such a dimension to the point where they blow up.
Yep.
If I'm going to bet it, I'm going to bet one way, and that's going to be I'm going to take the Titans and I'm going to take the under. Because if the Titans offense shows up and Derrick Henry finally gets looks like the Derrick Henry who ran for 2,000 yards last year, they control the ball on the ground, the game goes quickly, and Seattle's not able to score a lot of points, so the under hits. That's my thought process in that, which I think that Tennessee's hit the over 12 of their last 17 games or something crazy. But so I'm probably wrong there on the under, but I can't imagine a world where Mike Vrabel lets that happen.
Agreed.
Where they come out, lay an absolute goose egg against the Cardinals. Now they come back to the Seahawks. And the only thing that concerns me is how shitty that defense is. Their defense is terrible. I would take the Titans +6.5. I don't know where the public is on that. And if the public's on the Titans, then I might steer away just because I'm unders hit 8 of the last 10 home games for the Seahawks. So I feel a little confident there just because we've seen them week 1 score up points. We've seen that Tennessee, we all know can score points. I feel like it's not going to be one of those games. I would lean towards the under, and I'd lean towards Tennessee 6.5 just because Mike Vrabel letting this team lay another egg 2 weeks in a row just doesn't happen. So I would lean that way. Again, that's the game I probably will stay away from as well.
Yeah, I'm probably going to keep an eye on it because if it gets to 7.5, I will probably jump at that.
Yeah.
Seven.
Yeah. I feel like I missed a game for the earlier ones.
Did you? Let me check.
Oh, no, we talked about that. Never mind. All right, so we've got two left. We've got the Sunday night game. Kansas City at Baltimore. Chiefs are laying 3.5, 54.5, the over-under.
You do not give up 33 points and 400 yards to the Las Vegas Raiders and then play better against the Kansas City Chiefs. and, we all know my love and infinity for Gruden and Carr in that front. However, I love Kansas City minus 3.5 in this game. They can turn the switch on at any point in time. It could be a game like last week where they get down a little bit early. Then Mahomes squeaks out a 5-point victory. I think they win. I don't know if it's going to be a big win, but it could be in that 4 or 5 range, and I love that 3.5 number for them to cover.
Yeah. So the Chiefs are terrible at covering the spread. Like, it seems like every time you bet them, it never happens. But those are typically after the Chiefs offense gets going and the spread is like 12.5 against most teams. This is 3.5 against an injury-ridden Baltimore Ravens team.
Yep.
Now, I get you kind of have an equalizer with Lamar Jackson, which kind of showed up on Monday night against the Raiders, but I'm going to take the under. Just because I think the Chiefs put up points. The Ravens have the ability to, but there's a good chance that they don't. I would take the under at 54, and yeah, I gotta go the Chiefs.
Yeah,
and that might be a sucker play just because again, Chiefs are 1-5 in their last 6 covering the spread.
But so, how many 3.5 point spreads is that for this week? Is that 4 or 5 at 3.5 right now?
Like 13.
Yeah, I feel like that's all we talked about today is 3.5.
Which is always so stupid tough. Yeah. It's either 3.5 or like 6.5. I feel like most of these games. Yeah, let's see. Rams Colts was 3.5. Buffalo Miami 3.5. Niners Eagles was 3. It'll probably move to 3.5.
Yeah, Chargers Cowboys 3.5.
Saints Carolina 3.5. Vikings Cardinals 3.5. Cowboys Chargers 3.5. Yeah, I would say 8 of the 12 games are 3.5 right now.
That's great. That's insanity.
Which fucking sucks. But yeah. All right, so we're both going Kansas City again. It's not a huge spread; they can cover that because they should win this game, and they should win by more than 4. So, which brings us to the Monday night game: the Lions coming into Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers. Packers are minus 11.5 right now, 48.5 the over-under.
So I went and did a little research because we all know Aaron Rodgers has the one shit down his leg game per season. Like clockwork. 2019 against San Fran, 2020 against the Bucs. We all know what happened in those games. However, the week after, he balls. Last season, went down to Houston, won 35-20. He tossed 4 touchdown passes. Devontae had 13 catches for over 190 yards and 2 TDs. The year before, he had 4 touchdown passes at home against, I think, maybe. I can't remember where the game was when I looked it up. But a 4 touchdown performance, won 31-13. Detroit's offense really doesn't scare me, even with Kevin King out there playing corner for us still.
Hopefully Eric Stokes gets a little bit bigger role this week.
I agree. Seeing him get burnt deep again last week, that's what made me turn it off. But I mean, 11, what is that, 11.5 now?
11.5.
That's a big number. Usually don't play the Packers just for obvious reasons, being, from Wisconsin, tried and true Packers fan. But if I was to bet off of those trends that I just talked about with Rodgers bouncing back after the 1 game per season that he plays terrible in, I think last week was a good slap in the face for that team that just thought they were going to be able to pick up right where they left off with a back-to-back 13-3 seasons. I would take the Packers to cover 11.5 in this one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think the Packers in those 6 losses typically come back and win by 20.
Yep.
Every time Rodgers balls out. I think this was a huge eye opener. The only thing that concerns me is the Lions kind of getting a backdoor cover there.
Yep.
Because even when the Packers beat the Saints last year in week 2 or 3, They beat the doors off the Saints, and then they still only won by 7.
Yep.
Which I feel like the Packers do that a lot, where they'll blow out teams, but they typically like do the Vikings. I feel like all the time, where they'll beat the doors off the Vikings, and the Vikings come back and they end up losing by only like 8.5. So I'm with you. I think the Packers show up finally, but I think it's one of those weird situations where I kind of want to take the Lions. A lot of money on the Packers right now. That line might move. If that line moves anywhere near 13, like 12, 12 and a half, 13, I think I have to take the Lions. As bad as they are, we don't have Zadarius Smith putting pressure on there. It's a big loss to that defense that's already pretty fucking bad. I think the Lions score points. I love the over at 48. Love the over. I will hammer that over, and I'm leaning towards the Lions. It depends on where that line goes. If it gets down to, I mean, if the public starts being like, the Packers fucking suck, we're going to bet on the Lions, and it moves down to like 10 and a half, all over that. If it moves upward, because the opposite, I kind of want to see where that line goes, but the Packers should win this by 2 scores, should win this by 14. So the Packers are a pretty safe bet, I would say, but the Lions, especially coming back into the game against the 49ers last week and covering that, scares the shit out of me. So I feel safe on the over, because I think both teams are going to score a shit ton of points. But
I would take the Packers first half, because that's got to be what, 6.5, 7. I would guess 6.5. If it's 11.5 now, would be my guess.
Probably, yeah. I can find that out in about 2 seconds. Packers first half is -7.
Yeah, I would. I mean, at worst, a push on that one. I would take that more than I would 11.5 for the game.
Yeah, you got to feel like they're going to come out just firing.
Yep.
Especially after a loss like that. Yeah, that's big time. So, all right, over Packers 11.5. I feel like we both are going to be on that.
Yeah.
I might jump ship and take the Lions at the last second. We'll see. But all right, so that's the slate of NFL games. We have taken up enough of your time on this Friday as we look towards a massive slate of football for the next 2 days. You're going to be in the casino and the sports book. I would imagine camping out there. Oh, you don't have to camp out. You live across the street.
Yeah, so that's the beauty of apps. So I can just place bets from there, dual TV setup, take the dog for a walk, pop a few games on the phone. But I'll definitely be at the casino Saturday night checking out those late Pac-12 matchups for sure. And then there's not really a need for me to broadcast a ton of games at once, because I can watch the Rams and Raiders early at home, and I can watch the Packers on Monday night. So we are all set.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be sitting in front of my TV with NFL Sunday Ticket on my computer, with probably whatever like Bears game or shitty team is going to be the locally broadcast one.
Right.
Well, I got the Sunday Ticket, so I'll have that going on the computer. So I'll bet 4 games going at a time. But all right, well, thanks to everybody who showed up in the comments. Drunky Steve Sarkisian, still my favorite name.
Our number one. That's our number one. I doubt anybody's going to be able to beat that name.
And my good buddy Tom and Tom Racing. Thanks guys for all of you who watched. Thanks guys who are going to watch, because obviously there's a lot of time between now and Sunday. So hopefully all of those tuning in, hopefully you win all of your bets. Unless you bet against me, then you can go fuck yourself. So for AJ Ryder and Tyler Cintron, we'll see you guys next time.